these numbers, we can just rip them up. This is absolutely horrible news. What are we going to do? This is what I would recommend. All of a sudden, the New York Jets are pretty darn loaded at wide receiver as they add Davante Adams. Of course, this is absolutely horrible news for pretty much all their other receivers, including my guy Conk Daddy, who came up small last night. I don't think it was his fault. He came in to the game a little bit banged up. Maybe if they forced an overtime, I was kind of feeling that. But Mike Williams has a key drop. You can drop him. Speaking of drops, you can absolutely drop Mike Williams. You might even be able to drop Tyler Conklin. Not that he's like you're holding on to him with life and limb on your roster because he's been okay. But last night was definitely a disappointment. You kind of felt something was weird with that. You just kind of felt it at the end of the game because Wilson did have a great game, and so did Lazard, but the secondary guys did absolutely nothing. So they just need another guy there in the mix that Aaron Rodgers can count on. And, of course, that guy is Davante Adams. Real quick on the ramifications on this Davante Adams move. Well, very quickly over to the Raiders side of things. Obviously, Brock Bowers is going to eat, and he ate last week. That was one of my top 10 props on fantasypoints.com, over 5.5 receptions. Pretty easy win. So you're looking good with Brock Bowers, like really, really good. But here's a sneakier guy that I actually had last week in preparation for this move because I knew it was coming, just didn't know where Davante would go. Jakobi Meyers. I know he's a little boring, and I'm more about needle movers, but hey, you know, a big role and capable play is worth something for sure. And he's actually always been pretty underrated, Jakobi Meyers. Even when he was really a slot maven for the Patriots, our data showed when he lined up outside, the guy could win. So we understood when the Raiders made that deal, because remember, at the time they had Hunter Renfrow, and I'm like, all right, well, Renfro's not playing outside, so they're going to have to use Jakobi Meyers outside. They did, and it was pretty good. So I think Jakobi Meyers on the low end is a pretty sneaky buy low guy, but really at the end of the day, Tyler Conklin, you can cut him. Maybe not in a 14-team league. You might want to hang on to him. He's not hopeless, but they're working in Jeremy Ruckert. Mike Williams, you can absolutely cut. And I do think this is good news for Breece Hall. We'll get into Breece Hall from last night in a moment, but yeah, he might not catch as many balls, but you know, I'd rather my guy live off of 15 to 20 carries and 3, 4, 5 targets a game than what we saw late last year with Timmy Boyle out there checking it down to Breece Hall like 18 times per game. I think the big loser here is obviously Garrett Wilson. Looking at some of the numbers right now, he is wide receiver 13 in points per game, which is not great. He's 4th in route participation, which is great, and he'll probably stay way up there. Obviously, they're not going to take him off the field, but you know, some of these other points and stats are a little worrisome. Garrett Wilson only 9th in targets per route run. That number's going down. He only accounts for, he's 23rd in percentage of his team's yardage. That's not good, and that is going to drop obviously with Davante Adams. 57th in end zone targets. Dude's got one more end zone target than Michael Cohen, our producer, who is on the other side of the glass right now. So with Davante Adams in town, that's Aaron's first read, like literally 80% of the time, as he said himself today. And then only 6th, well, actually, this is a pretty good number, 6th in first read target share per Fantasy Points Data. Fantasy Points Data, the only company tracking first read targets. But all these numbers, we can just rip them up. They're all dropping. So, look, what are we going to do? This is what I would recommend. I'm not selling Garrett Wilson. He's still a really good player. His ROI is not going to be good. So you have your own personal depth charts on your website, and that's a little fluid situation. So you drafted Garrett Wilson as your 1. Well, now maybe even for good measure, you're demoting his ass down to your wide receiver 3. And I think for, you know, mentally, it's a lot easier to kind of do that. Like, all right, well, we're demoting you. Now we're going to lower our expectations as well. Otherwise, you're out there selling low. I'm not a big sell low guy. And there it is. Some quick thoughts on Davante Adams being traded to the New York Jets. Let's talk about the breaking news item here. It literally just came down the line as Amari Cooper has been traded to the Buffalo Bills from the Cleveland Browns. I'll actually start with Cleveland because I'm looking over at our data. First read target shares. Amari Cooper was obviously the guy there, but Jerry Jeudy was right behind him. He's been frustrating, but Jerry Jeudy is always open. I know we've got a poor quarterback here, but what do you think? Is there a chance that Jerry Jeudy, this could be what he needs? I mean, I don't think he's ever, commanded the ball quite like he should now for Deshaun Watson going forward.
Yeah, and that's the big question mark is that, you feel like he's been in situations where he should start commanding the ball more, whether it was situations in Denver or even coming over here to Cleveland, and it just hasn't happened yet. But with Cooper leaving, I mean, outside of him and Njoku, I don't really trust anyone on that Cleveland offense. I mean, I don't trust the Cleveland offense in general, but I do think that there's a potential for him to, if he does become the focal point, he is open frequently, and at least being open more often gives Deshaun Watson a bigger window to throw to, which, with his issues, it potentially could lend to, him seeing an uptick. I mean, I definitely think he sees an uptick in targets, and I think that, he will get more yards, but it's just, it's hard to trust anyone in that Cleveland offense right now. It's just complete disarray over there.
Yeah, it's bad. But Amari Cooper, though, he vacates a 33% first read target share. So now that he moves over to the Buffalo Bills, your thoughts? I think this guarantees Khalil Shakir is going to be inside. Obviously, Keon Coleman, not exactly ready for prime time. They lose Diggs and Gabe Davis. Clearly, there was something missing here, and they're not doing a great job getting Dalton Kincaid here. So what are your thoughts on Amari Cooper? How's his average separation score over at Fantasy Points Data? Because, he's an older player. Seems to me by my eyeball test that Amari Cooper is still winning out there and getting open.
Yeah, so, I mean, immediately I think he jumps into and goes right for most of Mac Hollins' routes, which I think is a good thing. And I think that if you look at his separation score, he's not way up on the list. He's still positive. He's at like a 0.05. It's 80th in the NFL right now. But I also think that a part of that score comes from the offense that he plays in. There's just a certain level of, quarterback play, defenses being able to kind of, play a little bit closer, knowing that the quarterback's not going to throw it as quickly. And just other things that kind of factor into it that I think that you will start to see a boost in Cooper's AS score overall. And I think that just being in an offense that just operates functionally, they have the, defenses have to worry about the threat of Josh Allen running and having, just overall a better offensive line over there too. I think all of it kind of lends to more high quality targets and more opportunity for him to separate just from the factor that, defenses aren't as, we're not that worried about the ball getting thrown. So I can take chances on, jumping routes and trying to be a lot stickier. So I think that Amari definitely has a chance to see a boost in his overall AS score. And I think that he's going to start getting more high quality targets. He's still a good receiver, and, he still operates really well over the middle. And I think that's what Buffalo's been missing is an over-the-middle threat. And so I think Amari Cooper kind of drops into that offense perfectly.
They're also missing an air yards guy. I mean, you thought maybe it could be a little bit of Dalton Kincaid, but yeah. Well, Amari Cooper is currently third in the National Football League in air yard share. I mean, my man is gobbling up thus far half the air yards in Cleveland. So I would get ready for Josh Allen to start taking some shots down the field because he's got that big arm, of course, and that probably open things up underneath for Dalton Kincaid and all that. So seems like a pretty savvy trade there by the Buffalo Bills.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.